When it comes to neck injury, you always have to be aware of other injuries, specifically the brain. So I like to ask questions about headaches, memory, whether there's a feeling of nausea. These are all signs that if you don't ask, you may not be told by the patient, because all they know is that they have neck pain. And as a physician, it's really my duty to make sure that I don't miss important things.
The Concussion Center proudly presents Talk-N-Headz, a podcast based on all things related to head injuries. This is not just a show about concussion. In this series, we take an in-depth look at the brain and its function specifically after there is trauma. Hosted by Brent Jones, Antonio Walden, and Dr. Robert Allen, Talk-N-Headz was created to give a realistic perspective to head injuries. So sit back, relax, and let us fill your head with brain knowledge.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Talk-N-Headz. You have myself and Brent. Rob lost the bet, so he's pouting that he's Robin instead of Batman. How does it feel to win?
Like every day. It happens every day. So, you just get used to it after a while.
Oh, man. Way to be humble. Way to be humble.
No, me and Rob, we get to trade off. So I'm excited to be here. Excited to have our guest on today. So Dr. Obi, it's great to have you, sir.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, not a problem. Look, we're obviously interested to learn a little bit more about you. Our listeners are interested to hear a lot about you too. I won't take too much of the reins on this, Antonio, but we're pretty laid back gentlemen here, as you can probably see. So if you don't mind, tell us how you got started in, your profession, your title, everything, and a lot of the exciting things you're doing. And I know Antonio's got some questions teed up that we'll go through with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, thank you again, Antonio and Brent. My name is Dr. Obi Ugwonali. I'm an orthopedic surgeon practicing here in Atlanta, Georgia. I went to Stanford for my undergrad, where I majored in economics and biology, then went to Yale Med School. After Yale, I went to Columbia in New York, where I did a biomechanics fellowship in shoulder and hand biomechanics. And then after that, I finished my residency in orthopedic surgery. After my orthopedic residency, I went to Boston, where I did my fellowship at Harvard in upper extremity surgery. So my subspecialty within orthopedics is shoulder, elbow, wrist, and hand surgery. So that's what I've been doing the last 15 years at PC Orthopedics.
So Harvard, Yale, then Harvard?
Yale, Columbia, then Harvard.
I gotcha. Wow, the trifecta.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
The real question is, were you bold enough to wear Yale paraphernalia at Harvard?
I don't think I did, to be honest with you. Probably kept those two separate.
Smart man.
Even bigger question, who do you cheer for when it comes to the cups? So if you're talking, pretty much any sport nowadays, but who do you cheer for? Is your heart set on one of them?
Well, my blood runs Cardinal Red, Stanford. That's my undergrad. That's my allegiance.
Yeah. I love it.
Appreciate that introduction, Dr. Obi. Neither one of us could have given a better introduction than what you gave yourself, but I did see something I wanted to ask you about. So I just saw that you were named the Castle Connolly Top Doctor for 2021.
Yes.
Wow, congrats.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that. What is that criteria? How did you get to that prestigious honor?
Yeah, so Castle Connolly gets surveys all doctors around the country, and basically wants to find out if they were patients themselves, who would they choose to treat them. And so it's a ranking based on our fellow physicians, and I've been fortunate to have been named top doctor here in Atlanta for the past 5 years in a row. So
awesome.
It's a total honor, because these are my colleagues, and they have seen what I've done for our community. And so it's a true honor to receive that award once more this year.
Oh, congrats. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
All right, well, let's jump into it.
Yeah.
Welcome to Talk-N-Headz, Dr. Obi. What we do here is we try to shed as much light as we can on head injuries and all the aspects of head injuries. And what a lot of people don't realize is how closely related head injuries, TBIs, are to orthopedics, and how much crossover there are. So when we were thinking about this show, of course, the name was at the top of the list of a professional physician we wanted to sit with us and walk us through these overlaps. So I know the number one thing that gets people to an orthopedist is neck pain and whiplash. So walk us through what you see if someone comes in with a neck pain, and how do you treat it, and when do you determine if it may be a little bit more than just regular whiplash?
Yeah, so in treating any kind of trauma, whether it's sports-related trauma, automobile-related trauma, slip and fall, or any of those things, when it comes to neck injury, you always have to be aware of other injuries, specifically the brain. So I like to ask questions about headaches, memory, whether there's a feeling of nausea. These are all signs that if you don't ask, you may not be told by the patient, because all they know is that they have neck pain. And as a physician, it's really my duty to make sure that I don't miss important things. And frankly, some of these neck and head injuries have become more prevalent, especially since the pandemic. You in a city like Atlanta, with decreased volume of vehicles and, folks driving much faster than what they used to, sometimes, these accidents are a lot more traumatic than what they used to. So I see a lot more now than I used to in the past.
Yeah, that's a good point. I actually didn't think of it from that perspective. Even though there are less cars on the road, that means there's less congestion and probably a little bit more severe car wrecks, which would in turn, warrant more intense, intense injuries potentially.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Doc, and right in your wheelhouse, we've seen a couple clients come through the Concussion Center, and they're complaining of tingling or sensations running down their arms. Right. And of course, they came to us first for TBI, but up until that point, I had never really even correlated tingling in the arms or any of your other extremities with maybe a TBI. Talk to us a little bit about how that comes to be, and the importance of diagnosing that symptom correctly.
Yeah, so not all tingling in the arm is from a peripheral nerve injury. As an upper extremity surgeon, I treat nerve compressions, things like carpal tunnels and cubital tunnel syndrome. So that's usually my go-to. Once those diagnoses start to not pan out, then you have to start to think that there could be something more central. One is in the neck, and then beyond that is the brain. And the brain controls everything throughout the body. And a lot of times, these numbness and tingling sensations, especially with some of these symptoms I've mentioned earlier, in combination should basically arouse a physician's instincts about referring them to a neurologist that may be more appropriate to have further diagnostics to pick out a traumatic brain injury.
Yeah. And on our end too, so you bring up some great points there on our end too, vice versa, because we do get some, patients that are sent to us and maybe haven't made it to orthopedic. And because our neurologist does a complete cervical evaluation, that's where we understand, okay, these are patients that need to get over to someone in your specialty because they're having, symptoms that we don't, that aren't, necessarily in our wheelhouse and are treated at the Concussion Center.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, absolutely. So, that's really what medicine is about. It's, everyone working together, figuring out what presents to your office that belongs to another specialty or subspecialty. Because if you operate, within just your specific area, you can miss a lot of things, and patients are not maximally served by our healthcare system if that happens.
Yeah, we've it's funny in doing what we've done and building the center. We've commonly used the terminology really kind of underdiagnosed. So not misdiagnosed as in it was incorrect. Underdiagnosed is just the light hasn't been shed as much onto the head injury. And I was just curious. I had a question. Just curious about what your opinion would be on that, and why that would potentially could have been in the past, and hopefully not in the future, where people are actually starting to look more into head injury. I just want to get your opinion on why you think people are starting to shine a little bit more of a light on it.
Well, the funny thing is that, sports, it's a big part of our culture.
Yeah.
And sports seems to always shed light on things. And I think with people realizing the effects of concussion on football players, for example, and the effects on the brain, folks are realizing that things that we used to take for granted before and say, oh yeah, just get back in there and continue playing, that those repeated head injuries end up being significant in the future. And I think that's part of why now people are paying more attention to head injuries, because they could have significant effects on folks down the line. And I think even within healthcare, most people didn't really pay a lot of attention to head injuries in the past. And now folks are paying more attention, because this is something that can be missed and could be very significant in the future if not treated appropriately initially.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that was almost also my kind of, opinion on it, if, take it for what you will, but I completely agree that the light's been shed on it more. Used to, if there was, someone who had some issues, I feel like they would, or may have moved on. There's been, well, he or she had depression. Well, why did they have depression if they weren't depressed prior to, right? And then now they're starting to tie a lot of these reasons back into, some of these injuries that have happened over time and just compounded on top of each other. We joked about this the other day. You got Ronnie Lott, who back in the 80s cut the tip of his finger off during the halftime of a football game to go out and play anymore. Luckily, we don't have people out there doing that kind of thing anymore. And people are finally starting to say, well, we should probably look into this a little bit more in depth here.
Absolutely.
I don't think you'll see that in the 2021 NFL season this year.
No, you will not see that for sure. Yeah.
Dr. Obi, last question I had for you until we move on to the next part of this was, like you mentioned earlier, it's holistically, we have to make sure that we are servicing a person in every aspect of their injury. Do you see any, correlation with, if a brain injury is not treated correctly, does that affect the healing of any other parts of the body?
Well, I think Brent just kind of alluded to that. The person's whole self will determine to what extent any treatment is effective. For example, if someone is depressed because of a brain injury, if someone has, physical problems that does not allow them to rehab appropriately, all those things will have an effect on how effective my treatment of the upper extremity is. So this is why the brain is the big center of our individual universe. Is, it controls everything. And so we really have to make sure that, serious problems are not missed, because they could have impact not only person's brain, but other parts of the body that are injured, that need to be properly rehabbed in order to get better.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Yeah. And that question was actually a segue. See how great of a host I am?
That's right.
into a
You're
holistic
Hey,
approach.
That's right. That's
hey,
right.
Steve Harvey, watch out.
That's right. That's right. I think you may have something in the future here.
Family Feud.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
I mean, in keeping with that holistic approach, Dr. Obi, you came up with a concept here. I'm not entirely sure how many years ago, but in the last couple of years, it's really taken off and came to fruition. The entity known as MedTransGo, where you essentially provide transportation for individuals to get to and from appointments, because if they can't get to treatment, how are they going to get better? If they can't get home where they're comfortable, how are they going to rehab effectively? And also you have a translation component of it. And I'm quite sure some other components that I don't know anything about yet. So if you could just give us a breakdown of MedTransGo, how's it been beneficial? What kind of feedback have you seen in the market? And any scoops of where you plan to go next with it would be awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Antonio, for asking that question. Well, first of all, I am so busy that I don't really have a lot of hobbies that I do in my extra time. My hobby is MedTransGo. First of all, when I went to Stanford, my major was in economics and biology. So I've always had two, sided brain. One is medicine and one is economics and business. So MedTransGo started as after I had an experience 6 years ago that led me to experience cancellations. I had 2 back-to-back surgeries that canceled. They ended up costing me, my surgery center, anesthesia, and everyone involved a significant amount of money. I'll just put it that way. It's so much that it was very, very upsetting to me. Led me to research the problem and realize that cancellations cost the whole healthcare industry over $150 billion a year. Okay. Yep. My surgeries were extremity surgeries, not life-threatening or anything like that. But that also led me to realize that those cancellations could affect people long-term if they were for injuries that could have really significant problems down the line. Let's say someone missed an appointment to see a cardiologist for high blood pressure and ended up next week having a heart attack. So it made me realize that cancellations cost the healthcare industry so much more that I needed to do something about it. And having gone to Stanford and having friends who helped start technology companies, I had a network that I could tap into to help me figure out how to approach this thing. That's how we ended up forming MedTransGo, which is a healthcare patient management optimization platform that allows us to use vetted transportation providers, foreign language interpreters, telemedicine platform, and medication delivery folks to help make sure that cancellations don't occur. And if they do occur, there's a telemedicine involved that can help doctors see their patients at home or at work, wherever they may be, and then medication delivery or medical equipment delivery people that can then deliver stuff to them so that we can minimize those cancellations and, more importantly, the effect of cancellations on those folks. So in essence, MedTransGo is not necessarily a transportation company or interpretation company. It's a cancellation solution that uses vetted folks to make sure that we match patients with the right level of service. We have ambulance drivers, we have non-emergency medical transportation folks in our platform, and we're actually now working to offer first responders that may be retired or during their off time to help us drive, because we have a very stringent criteria for people who drive our patients. They have to meet a very stringent 10-point criteria. So this is really my passion, because I want to make sure that people who are supposed to be somewhere to get medical care get it. And we actually ended up finding out that the folks who end up getting canceled are people in rural communities, people in underserved communities, women who are single, poor people. So we didn't set out to solve a problem with socioeconomic ramifications, but we ended up realizing that when you look at the statistics, people who end up canceling are the people who actually need the medical care the most. So
Yep.
it's really become a passion for me. Sorry to be long-winded, but once you ask me a question about MedTrans Go, be prepared to listen because I can go on and on and on forever about this.
No, it's great. Great information, and it's
yeah.
enlightening. I didn't realize you guys do prescription delivery and medical device delivery. So you guys delivering, are you guys refueling oxygen and delivering? Are you doing some of those types of items too?
Yeah, so basically, if a doctor sees a patient on telemedicine, similar to what we're doing now, and they say, hey, you need X, Y, and Z, they just go on, log in, and let us know where to go pick it up, and our drivers will go pick it up and drop it off to the patient's house. And we have a proprietary technology that we use to make sure that it's confirmed, and it's no touch, meaning that the patient is confirmed digitally. The prescription is dropped off in front of their house so they can get it as soon as they need it.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, I can tell you with 100% confidence, the Concussion Center has used you quite frequently.
Yeah.
quite frequently. We actually, I'd be lying if I told you her name, but we seem to have a nice young lady who comes over pretty frequently now and is almost part of the team there when she comes in-house to do our interpretations. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, definitely. We are expanding. We're now in 10 states and expanding. Recently, we were chosen by Morgan Stanley to participate in our fundraising round. So Morgan Stanley is now leading our fundraising round because they've seen what we're doing, the impact that we're having, and they see the financial possibilities. So we're really, really excited about the future.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
That is great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I promise you we wouldn't hold you long. I appreciate you coming by and imparting your knowledge into this space. As you can tell, we're passionate about head injuries, concussions, neurology. And as you already know, we just want to make sure that we can educate as many people as we can in as many different ways as we can, and make sure that we are providing a service that is just as beneficial as the other great providers like yourself that occupy this space as well. Brent, do you have any final thoughts?
Nope, I'm good. Mine, I just appreciate it. It's nice to have you, Dr. Obi. I know we get to see each other a decent amount outside this world, the podcast world. So thank you so much for everything you do, and thank you again for MedTrans Go and all the help that you have provided to to our patients.
Well, thank you guys for inviting me, and again, thank you for the work you're doing for your patients. It's a very important work, and please feel free to contact me anytime.
Yeah, we definitely will.
All right.
And right on in line with your point earlier, Dr. Obi, where you said sports shines a light and leads the way in a lot of areas. I just got an alert that the NBA is looking into doing outside games.
Wow.
Really?
Wow. That's amazing.
They did a game on an aircraft carrier a few years ago. That was college basketball game though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But that's awesome.
Well, I mean, think about it though. Many of us grew up, where did we grow up playing? Outside.
Yeah.
No.
We just forgot about it when we got to be adults and got an economic and business degree.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we'll see what that leads to.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. Hey guys, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I will let you both run, and until the next time, people, take care of your heads.
All right. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
All right. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Talking Heads. This podcast has been brought to you by the Concussion Center. We appreciate the opportunity to fill your brain with some new information regarding head injuries. If you have any additional topics you would like us to cover, please reach out to us on our various social media platforms at the Concussion Center, or hit us up on our website at concussionctr.com.